Welcome into another edition of The Session with Londa and David. My name is David Austin.
I'm Londa Sherwood Austin. Welcome back.
You are such a pretty girl, hon.
Oh, well,
we just had a meeting with clients, and the client said to you, you know, I really like you because you're so confident. I love the confidence. And I said, and super hot. And they loved it when I said, but that's really just for me, guys. That's not for you. That's for me.
It wasn't awkward at all.
It shouldn't have been awkward. They thought it was hilarious, and it was fun.
Yes.
Anyway, The Session with Londa and David is a business-focused podcast that talks about the three things we are most interested in. What are those, Londa?
Real estate, obviously.
Okay.
Restaurants, of course. Mm-hmm. And retail sales.
Why are those three things so important and the cornerstone of this program?
We both work in real estate.
Okay.
We're both licensed realtors. You're also a longtime lender.
Over 20 years.
We both grew up in restaurants.
Uh-huh.
I have coached restaurant owners. I've run restaurants. I grew up in restaurants. I love restaurants. And retail sales. I cut my teeth in retail sales. So did you. We both love it. We live it, love it, live, love, laugh. I don't know.
You know what? That's kind of what I want to talk about in this week's program.
Okay.
When we got into our business lives as kids doing retail sales.
Just
babies. That's right. I was 16 years old working at Chess King in the now Mall of Acadiana in Lafayette, Louisiana. Mm-hmm. And you were...
I was in restaurants up till I was 18.
Right.
And then still, because I always had multiple jobs, you know, because I was back in that day. Where there weren't laws about how many hours you could work. But my first like retail job was at Nordstrom.
There you go. Well,
great sales training back in the day. It's not what it used to be.
The reason I want to talk about that a little bit on this program is because I kind of want to focus on inspiration and mentorship, because everybody needs a mentor, and everybody needs to find inspiration in their work, no matter what you're doing. And I think this is a great opportunity for us to talk about what inspires us, who has inspired us, and how we continue to be inspired.
I like where you're going with this.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it's kind of a cool idea.
If you didn't know, we generally don't have a plan when we sit down in these chairs and turn the microphones on.
Right.
Honest to God, we just don't. We just kind of riff and invite you guys into it.
Well, and, you know, we've got such a depth of experience in sales in general that we can always come up with something that is of value.
Yeah.
And what I want to ask you about specifically is what inspires you and who is the mentor that you think about in your history the most?
Oh, wow. That's good. That's a great question. I'm usually the one asking questions of people, and rarely does anyone ask me questions. So I'm a little, Okay, ask again. What inspires me?
Yep, what inspires you, and who specifically do you think of most as a mentor, and what kind of tips and wisdom did they give you to become who you are in this sales arena? And let me give you an example before you answer. When I got into sales, Ron Ford was my first manager who taught me kind of his sales process. I often hear the things he said to me, right, about how to greet people and how to be friendly. Then flash forward a few years, and Rebecca Breeding was my general manager when I became a radio salesperson. I'd been in radio already for years and years and years, but I'd been an on-air guy, and I have tons of mentors on air, but I mean in sales specifically.
Yeah.
And Rebecca gave me advice that every single day I use, truly every single day. And it was really sales, use what you used in college to get laid. That's what she said to me, right? That's what sales is. So When you talk about sales systems, what is the thing that makes you engaging to other people? How do you connect with them? That's how I relate that information and have used it over the years, right? So let's go back to the question.
Okay.
Number one, what inspires you? And when you look back, who do you frequently look back on as mentors that have helped you become who you are?
Okay. First mentors I can remember and that I do reflect back on often were my two grandmothers.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's talk about that.
Yeah. So very influential in my young life. Mm-hmm. The thing that I caught from them was systems.
Okay.
Because they were both quite systematic in the way that they ran their lives.
Sure.
Right. So my mom's mom was what you would call a stay-at-home, homemaker.
Right.
But she had a system for everything that she did in the home.
Okay.
She was very scheduled, very regimented. If it was Tuesday, I could tell you exactly what she was doing because every Tuesday it looked the same. And I thought, wow, that's a really smart way to do things. Uh-huh. Like she did the wash on Mondays and ironed on Tuesdays and, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Friday, she got dressed and went to town and did the grocery shopping. It was just very, Thursday she cleaned the house and this is how she did it. Like, it was just very interesting to me as a kid to watch because my mom was the complete opposite.
Okay.
My mom didn't care at all about any of that. My mom liked to have fun.
Right.
And keeping a home, the last priority on her list.
Sure. Ugh. Your mom and my mom were a lot alike in that way.
God, it drove me crazy. Even as a kid, it was like the clutter I started cleaning the house when I was like 9.
Right.
Because I just couldn't take it anymore.
Right.
So it's in me, right? My dad's mom let me finish. My mom's mom also, though, ran the books for my grandpa's business.
Okay.
And not just ran the books, but like handled all the advertising. And he was a painter.
Okay.
He and his brother had a painting business that they did together. They did some drywall and painting, that kind of thing.
He's the guy that taught you how to cut in and make straight lines on walls.
Yeah. He taught me how to paint. And so she ran the back end of that. So she was super smart too. I thought, wow, she's this really dialed in homemaker, but also running this business on the back end. And that was very inspiring to me and became a lot of what I did in, the years I was raising kids. My dad's mom then was also pretty scheduled, regimented. She raised 3 boys, was the wife of a farmer in Southern California who had thousands of acres of crops, wheat and cotton mostly. And she helped run the farm.
Okay.
And raise the boys, right? So similar in that she was involved in the back end, but really focused on the children. I think the most inspiring thing that she ever did, in my opinion, was once she got her children raised, her last one graduated high school, and the next fall she started college or went back to college. She had a little bit of college and then quit when she got married. Went back to college, got her teaching degree, got her master's degree, became an education specialist for the county.
I gotcha.
Massively sought after. And you would think at like 45, 46 years of age, like who's going back to school?
Yeah.
She did. And that was inspiring to me.
That's
right?
Cool.
And then I think she finally retired at 83 only because she had Alzheimer's. The early onset dementia was starting to show up in the work. And so she tried to retire twice before and they kept calling her back because she was so good at what she did.
Right.
So she would take kids that were failing in the system anywhere in the county, and she'd bring them in and she'd run them through a battery of tests, figure out their learning style, their personality, their IQ, their all this stuff. And then she would create a curriculum for them that was specially designed to fit this kid, the way they think, the way they learn, the way they work, their family dynamics and lifestyle. I mean, it was just, brilliant, right? And so those are 2 people that I even today still think about and am very inspired by their lives and what they did.
Okay. And how does that impact what you do and how you do things the way you do them today?
Well, I think I remember that routine saves you, you know, because when things go sideways in your life, in the world, in whatever you're doing, if you have a routine that you do, you can lean into that routine.
Like get up in the morning and make your bed.
Yeah.
I get up in the morning and make you coffee.
Yes.
Okay.
We love that routine.
That's a great
Keep
routine.
that up. But you know, this is life, right?
Right.
And shit goes sideways. It just does. Disasters happen, family tragedy, whatever.
You go to
Things
Maui,
happen.
you could be having a great time at a hotel and all of a sudden everything's on fire.
Yeah, I mean, stuff happens.
Yeah.
And so having a routine that you can lean into, and it provides some kind of comfort, right?
Okay.
Some kind of forward motion, progress that you're doing every day. Maybe it's not perfect, but at least you've got this thing that you lean into that you know you can kind of count on. It's like the sun rising every morning, right? It comes up every day, no matter what's going on in my life.
Right.
I know it's coming up every day. And
Yeah.
that's a source of inspiration to me too.
Sure.
Like it can all be falling apart, but I know that sun's going to come up. It can all be falling apart, but I know there are certain things that I'm going to do throughout the day that are routine.
Right.
And so I think that's what I take away from them. Also that it you know, one of them was highly educated. One had no more than a 7th grade education.
Right.
Both brilliant women, extremely intelligent.
And successful.
Yep. So they inspire me that way, that there are no borders.
Okay.
There are no borders. You can go back to school. I could go back to school now if I wanted to.
You absolutely could.
You know, you can do, I guess they kind of inspired me to, you can do whatever you want to do and you can overcome a whole lot of things, because they did. I look back at their life and I'm very blessed in that I do have some journal, a 5-year journal that my dad's mom kept when she was quite young, dating my grandpa. And that's so much fun to read through. And I pull a lot from that.
Did she say anything crazy at all in the journal? Like any wicked stories that we shouldn't know?
No. She was a very appropriate woman.
Okay.
Yeah,
I wonder if I found any of that.
That would never
that my
have
mom's
happened.
written. I bet there's some scandalous things.
Oh,
in there.
yeah. But yeah, I draw a lot of inspiration from both of them even today, that it's never too late to do anything. You can overcome any obstacle. My grandparents, my mom's parents were in a horrible car accident in the early 60s.
Yeah.
And it really changed their lives dramatically. They still overcame, they went forward, they moved, so that's a source of huge inspiration to me, even before we get into like professional mentors.
Well, and see, what you're saying is very different than what I was expecting to hear. I was expecting you to be all business, boom, 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 button down.
Well, but the reason that I was, but then you asked me not only about mentorship, but inspiration.
Right.
And that's sometimes the same thing and sometimes different. What I find inspiring is like when everything's falling apart, I think about the people who have gone before me, who overcame the obstacles, even when it got really hard.
Interesting.
And for me, that's my grandparents and my parents.
Yeah. That story, there's a Southern Gothic hardiness to your grandparents' stories individually, right?
Yeah.
So
for sure.
Yeah, that's interesting to know that you lean that much into your history to help go forward. I guess we could all look at our family situations and find stories like that, right?
Right.
Every story.
Well, and I just love people's stories too. It's not just them, but it's like if you strip it all away, they're really a kind of an anchor.
Yeah.
For me. But I love anybody's story of overcoming.
Sure.
That's why we love those movies, right? The movies about, especially sports, they love to lean into them,
Yeah, like
Eddie
Rudy.
the Eagle and Rudy and all of those kind of stories.
Did you see Eddie the Eagle?
Yeah.
I went to see that with my friend Bob. We skipped trombone rehearsal one Saturday and went to the movies to see Eddie the Eagle.
You naughty
What
boys.
a fun time.
Yeah. I mean, all of those stories, Miracle, the hockey team, although I love those. And I love any story that is the story of overcoming.
Right.
Right. And so, yeah. Now, when you go to professional mentors, I had some great ones. When I was at Nordstrom, I had a manager. His name was Eddie Espinoza. And he was the guy that, I remember a lot about Eddie, but the one thing I still carry with me today is when I was standing there complaining and he finally looked at me and he said, and he was a pretty quiet guy. He didn't have a lot to say, but when he spoke, it was important.
Right.
And he said, you know what, Londa? If you spent as much time working as you do complaining, you'd be a star.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, I want to be a star.
Sure.
I want to be a star. I want to be the shiniest star.
Right.
And so I shut up and got to work.
Yeah.
And so that was pivotal for me. And I still think about that when I'm feeling like complaining about everything. Just get to work.
When I think about get to work, the thing that I remember in my little movie that plays in my head is how my dad would walk into a Kentucky Fried Chicken for the first time in a 3-piece suit.
Now, why was he walking into a Kentucky
he
Fried
was the
Chicken?
fixer.
Give us a little backstory.
He was the fixer. He was the guy that if a market wasn't doing well, the colonel sent him into the market, literally,
colonel?
Literally, to turn it around. And he would, go in his 3-piece suit with his big handlebar mustache, which you've never seen on him, but that's what he had my entire childhood.
Terrifying.
A big waxed handlebar mustache.
The 70s, you mean?
70s and 80s, yes. And he'd walk in like a tan, very unattractive 3-piece suit because that's what existed in the 70s and early 80s.
Yeah.
And he'd walk in and he'd ask the manager to show him the office, and he'd take off his suit jacket and his vest and sometimes his dress shirt, and he'd start cleaning that kitchen of that restaurant from the jump without having many conversations. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he would, I remember one time distinctly where he was laying on his back underneath the sink, those big stainless steel sinks that restaurants have, with a brush scrubbing the sink, right?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, didn't talk to anybody in the store. The whole time he's cleaning, the whole time. And at the end of his time that he was there, and usually if Nathan and I went with him, we'd be holed up in the office, just watching out the window of the office, watching him, right? Yeah. And he'd call everybody into the lobby, and he'd say, this is what your kitchen needs to look like every single day.
Wow.
I don't want to have to do this again. I'll see you guys tomorrow. And we'd load up in the car and we'd leave, and everybody would be there stunned silent with their mouths hanging open. Very friendly, not mean, but very stern, right?
Yeah.
This is how a kitchen should look every single day. I don't want to do this again. And then he'd leave.
Yeah, I can't even imagine Johnny that way.
And the next day when he came back, everybody was, the parking lot had already been policed. Yeah. There's no wrappers in the park. And before he went in, he'd pick up the parking lot every time. I picture that in my head when I picture how to work.
Wow.
And that's why I have good work ethic.
Right.
Do I want to do that labor? No. But I learned that to be respected, you have to be willing to do that.
Yeah.
And guess what? Every market he went into was turned around. Every single one. Yeah. And I think it might have been that.
It
was like a real life bar rescue episode. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You bring up a really good point, and that is, I remember the first time that I learned a little bit about management. Mm-hmm. I became an assistant manager at Nordstrom of one of the departments, and I remember the toilets got clogged one day at the store, and I thought they would call a plumber, but no, the store manager
went in there,
rolled up his sleeves and cleaned it. And I remember asking my department manager, like, what's that about? And she said to me, oh, that's what management is. It's taking ownership of every piece of this thing. He could have waited for a maintenance person to arrive.
Sure.
But it would have put his store out of operation for a time. And so I remember like those kind of lessons that, man, those stick with you, just like watching your dad on his back under that sink.
Yep.
You know? And I've looked for a mentor in business ever since.
I gotcha.
Ever since Eddie Espinoza.
Yeah. And I've only ever had really, really positive mentorship from any of the people that I've worked with.
I'll be honest with you. Some of the best business mentorship that I ever got was from somebody who wasn't even alive anymore.
Okay, explain that to me, because did you use a Ouija board? How'd you get the information?
Yeah, I just asked questions and then...
Am I going to be successful? Ooh.
What you guys don't know, I'll let you in on this. So David and I, both of our mothers have passed on many, many years ago. And sometimes we will joke about, well, I'll ask your mom, and then I'll pretend I'm using a Ouija board. I've never used one, just for those of you that were freaking out.
You've never done that
no,
as a kid?
No,
never
no.
fooled around with it?
No, my mom was like, don't mess around with that stuff.
You're going to open a gate. A demon's coming through.
I mean, she was like, listen, when I was a kid, I played with one once and it was freaky. Don't ever do that. And so
it is absolutely freaky. It is freaky.
No way.
But it's a game.
Yeah. No,
a Ouija
anyway.
board is sold as a game. It's not real.
Yeah.
I don't think it's real. Maybe it is. Who knows? I don't know. None of my business.
So some of the best mentorship I ever got in my whole life was from someone who was no longer even living. And I did, for a handful of years, I was in a direct sales company that you may be familiar with, Mary Kay Cosmetics.
Oh, so it was Mary Kay. It was
Mary
not
Kay
the
Ash.
ghost of Mary Kay.
No. But during that time, I devoured everything I could find that she ever wrote, right? And Mary Kay Ash was a brilliant businesswoman. And I encourage you, if you're in business, especially if you're a woman, to read her books, because holy cow, I learned a lot during that time. And my upline in the company, Heidi Newell and Beth Doyle and Connie Kitson at the time, I think she has a different last name now though, but those women were very instrumental in me like taking a lot of what I had learned and taking it to the next level. That company was great for me. And this is many years ago now, but, but man, it really taught me a lot. Okay. And a lot that I still use today in business.
Sure.
You know, and then after that, I hired a business coach and I've spent over $100,000 in coaching and sales training and over the last 35 years.
Let me stop you right there again.
What?
You've spent how much money on what?
Well over $100,000 on sales coaching, sales training, seminars, business training, etc.
So you need to stop telling people that you don't have formal education.
No, well, I certainly have paid for it.
Absolutely you have.
Yeah.
And that is awesome.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Thank you. Yeah. I believe in it. I believe in having a mentor. I believe in that's why I am a business coach, because I believe in coaching. I believe in, and we have now a shared mentor that you introduced me to, who I think might be the most valuable mentor I've ever had. I've learned a lot from a lot of people over the years.
Sure.
But this one is something special. Yeah. You know, and so
and that just for people that don't know is my friend Les Savage, who was the owner of Oasis Custom Homes and Varsity Construction.
Yeah,
and he, I was his preferred lender for 15 years.
Yeah,
and during that time, we were kind of business partners, and he showed me a lot about life and relationships and work and how to make money over that 15 years. And he's been retired now for 5 years.
But he's not really retired.
Right. From that.
I'll tell you, though, he could tell me, hey, you need to pack a suitcase and fly to the moon. And I'd probably do it.
Yeah.
I would try to figure out how to make it happen.
A snorkel's not going to help you breathe. Don't bring a snorkel.
Yeah, I mean, so I think that there have been times in my life where I've been in spaces that were just on their own, very inspiring. Mary Kay Cosmetics was that way for me.
Okay.
Very inspiring space to be in. It was very sad that came to an end for me, but I'm glad everything worked out, because I'm here, right? You can't regret your past, but it was a very ugly ending. But it was an incredibly inspiring space to be in on the daily.
Sure.
And then there are times in your life where you're in a space where it's not inspiring. The current space you're in, you have to go find your own inspiration. And so I would say to anybody that there is no reason to not be inspired, right? There's no reason to not be excited and inspired and ready to go all in and push forward and get excited about things, because you find your own inspiration if it's not being provided for you, right? Nobody, what am I trying to say? Nobody's obligated to feed you.
Right.
Go feed yourself, right?
Let me say that in another way.
Okay.
Leaders lead, and you can lead yourself if you have to.
Oh, come on. Let's go.
Right?
Yeah.
Leaders lead.
Yeah.
Don't look for it without, look for it within sometimes.
It better be within, because the external wears off. The external doesn't get you out of bed in the morning.
Right.
It just doesn't.
Right.
You got to get your own self up.
Let me tell you something. If you're in a business or a job where you don't feel like you have a sense of ownership, that is on you.
Ooh.
That is not on your employer.
Damn.
If you don't feel like you're running the show in your business,
right,
it's because there's something missing in you. So run your damn show.
Yeah. Yeah.
Work the show, run the show.
Yeah. And if that means, making a change, small or large, seemingly insignificant or quite significant, make a change.
You can
we talk a lot about that.
Your own chairs for your studio,
which I did. You ended up helping me a lot, actually. I just think that finding, I don't know, I've coached a lot of different people over the years, and if someone comes to me, if they have drive, I can coach them.
Right.
I can make them a winner.
Right.
But if they don't have drive, and I don't care where that drive comes from, it can come from desperation.
Yeah.
It can come from fear. It can come from a personal sense of motivation. I don't care where it comes from. If you've got drive, I can work with that. But if you don't have any drive, if you're a little too comfortable in your life, I can't work with that.
You know what?
I don't want to work with that.
You know what we're going to do this weekend?
What?
We're going to call Les. We're going to have him come over. We're going to get a bottle of scotch.
Okay. Oh, I like where this is going.
And the three of us are going to rewatch The Wolf of Wall Street, because that is the best inspirational sales motivation.
Watch that with Les.
Yes, you can.
I'll leave the room during the icky parts.
There's no real icky parts.
There are very sexually explicit parts in that movie that I would be uncomfortable watching.
But they're giving you a real look at what happened in the 90s in that era, right? Was it the 90s or the 2000s? It was the 2000s.
Know.
But it was
Based
the 2000s because Steve Madden's who got the guy in trouble.
Yeah.
So there you go. Steve Madden's still around.
Yeah. It is a great movie.
Yeah.
I just can't watch it with Les.
It's the best sales training in the world. The scene where he's talking about...
Keep in mind, it's very old school.
Can't pay the rent.
It's not how we do it now.
Great. Pick up the phone.
Yeah.
The scene where he's going in, where this big Wall Street guy goes into this little strip mall that has a business selling penny stocks.
Yeah.
And he gets on the phone and starts cold calling people. Inspirational.
Yeah.
Les and I almost cried the first time we watched it. It was so good.
Yeah.
So good.
Filthy. So just, I don't want to give a recommendation without letting people know.
It's a hard R.
It is a hard R movie. And fantastic. One of my favorite movies.
When I saw that the very first time, I was in the movie theater with Dago and Miguel Velasquez and Rob Lindsay. And when he got done with his pick up the phone speech, I said, "Excuse me, guys." And I went out into the lobby and I picked up the phone and called an underwriter who was not approving my loan. And I convinced that underwriter that it was fully legit and we've got to close this loan. And that guy, believe it or not, who that underwriter wanted to deny, never missed a payment, sold that house for a wild profit 10 years later, and is living happily ever after. So
confidence will get you through a lot of doors.
Yep.
Experience, wisdom, understanding will keep you moving through doors. But confidence will get the door open.
That's exactly right. And just so you know, our client said to you today, "I love your confidence. I love it, and that's what I like about you."
I'm really thrilled to hear that. That's the thing I want people to know about me. And sometimes there are people that don't like it. And, you know, it's kind of that idea that, like, if I'm too much, go find less.
Well, and that's the thing, right? Our customers,
I'm not for everybody.
Our customers and clients are the people who want to play ball with us. Yeah. And if they don't want to play ball with us, that's fine. Find someone you want to play ball with. Love. Yeah. That's exactly right. There's enough business to go around.
Absolutely.
Okay. The moral of the story is we didn't even talk about anything more than Eddie Espinoza for a business mentor, but we did get to something very important, that your history helps inform your presence.
Oh, yeah.
Your present. And that's really, really cool. I did not know that about you. I didn't know you were going to go there with your grandparents.
I didn't either.
I could do a whole show about my parents alone and my grandparents, and it wasn't even in my brain.
Yeah. Yep.
For the prettiest girl in the world, Londa Joanne Sherwood Austin, my name is David Austin, and this has been The Session with Londa and David. We'll see you again right here next week.